Uh, this study was initiated quite some time back. It had remaining and lagging and remaining with us for some time. Started off in the midst of just at the time of COVID had started, we had started with this work. And then COVID delayed the work so much, and then we collected data, and then finally took quite some time to finish this particular work. time the buyer, the seller sells it and it reaches the buyer, you have gone through many dealers with small, so it actually accumulates. And there is a large price difference. The market price and the final price that is available in the, for the seller is actually quite different, and there is interpolation. But there is also a bigger problem. The problem is not only about the dealers and the small margins that they get. Much more important is the inability of the farmers or the growers to identify quality of rubber, and that becomes a major price. Now, rubber, just like any other product, has got different shades of rubber. That we have what we call as INR or RP, or called RSS1, RSS2, smoke sheets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And then you have coagulant, field coagulant, then you have linkages. And each of these you measure the dry rubber content. We have some content is measured in each of these things. And then you also have other varieties, what is called the Indian rubber, where we have a pigeon or all this. Right? We have so various varieties of rubber is available in the market. But all these varieties of rubber, whichever varieties are of rubber, has got nothing to do with the tree as it is everything to do with how the processing is done. The processing is what differentiates the quality and not the tree or the outcome from the tree. Now that makes a big difference. So who does processing makes a big difference as to what is the quality of rubber. So what happens is that the farmers usually, the growers, the adding value or processing or adding value to the product, the basic rubber that the latex that you're getting, adding value to the product, there is a chain of process that is required, and that process is expensive. Expensive in the sense that it can be done at very large scale also. But when you do that very small scale, the per unit cost of rubber cost is very small. For instance, you need to have something called a smoke house. Sheet and but modern stuff is not like that. You need very large smoke houses and you need inputs. Either use wood itself or some other forms of inputs are used to kind of smoking. In terms of small farmers, it's expensive to smoke. For the large farmers, they can have their own cost. But the point is that because of the quality that you are, the way in which you are going to smoke it and getting the product out, there is a certain amount of quality indeterminates that is there in the market, which is actually kind of exploited by the dealers. When you buy the product from the grower, you say that the rubber belongs to this particular quality, and when you sell it, you actually sell it saying that it's a different quality. Right? So there is a margin that is there. So even though the quantity margin in terms of quantity of amount that you're saying it is 5,000, but the overall margin is higher than what it is. So there is certain amount of indeterminacy. So that's the problem with it. And that's about the processing in the time. Now, just to overcome these kind of issues that the rubber board had been introduced, what we call the rubber producer societies in 1986, and they were to be registered. These rubber producer societies are registered as voluntary association of small growers under the Charitable Societies Act. These are considered to be democratically functioning collectives operating in small compact areas, memberships ranging from 50 to 200 workers. And currently there are about 2,000 RPS at least in paper, about 2,000 of them are there. And most of them are in Kerala. About 90% of them, these rubber producer societies are in. So you can imagine that in every rubber producing village, you will have a few rubber producer societies, and they would be engaging with various activities with regard to rubber assets. But currently, rubber board census identifies that about 24% of these are being found. About 35% are not well performing RPSs. And the second problem is that the active members within RPSs are declining, that is, who are actually participating in the RPSs. In general, the RPS is actually losing significance in the rubber production and marketing ecosystems. The latest rubber board's annual report 2021-22 reports thus that despite efforts to revive RPSs, which the goals envisaged by the rubber board due to reasons such as lack of leadership and so on and so forth and all those things, the rubber board finally decides to withdraw the approval of RPSs initiated during 2021 and continued in 2021-22. So accordingly, 111 RPSs in one region have been withdrawn during 2021-22, reducing the number of RPSs to 20 for 3 years. So it is actually the rubber board accepting or kind of in the annual report kind of writing that your RPSs are not fully functional. This raises the important question of what is happening with RPSs. Why is it that RPSs are not happening? So what we have done a primary survey and we have used mixed methods to do this analysis. Survey was done in 4 rubber zones, which is spread about 6 districts in Kerala, Kannur, Palakkad, Kottayam, Pathanamthitta, Alapi district, Alapi and Kollam, from different districts. About 4 zones, 6 districts in Kerala. Survey started during 2024, got extended in 2021-22. We have included now from the 4 zones, 100 RPSs were randomly selected, and one of them was that was available. At this point, I must thank the Board helping out with the survey. The list of RPSs and the meeting with the RPSs and conducting the primary survey itself actually was done by the Rubber Board, right? Our involvement was building the questionnaire, training the about the extension service officials, and then also doing the case studies. The study consisted of primary, and we have data collected from two particular groups of people. One is the RPS themselves, about 99 RPSs. And then we visit also farmers who are members of RPSs and farmers who are not members of RPSs, also from the same locality itself. So it is like you have 3 segments of the same study. One is RPS, then you have growers, then you have growers who are RPS members, and then growers who are not RPS members. Today we are going to focus only the analysis on the RPSs themselves. We are not going to discuss the results from farmers and or the growers and what we are going to do today is just to look at the RPS societies themselves, and the rest the analysis with regard to the growers we would be able to do it at a later point soon, maybe another 2 weeks or 3 weeks at that. Now, what are the objectives of the society? I think it is interesting it is important to understand why these rubber producer societies are there. The rubber producer societies have to follow a bylaw which is actually has states an objective and a certain amount of functions that the rubber producer societies are supposed to be doing. Just to read this, I'll just read the objective itself, the rest of it I'll show you in different areas. To work for the prosperity and development of agricultural, economic, social conditions of rubber growers within the jurisdiction without any motive of profit making. The rubber producer societies are being functioning for socio-economic conditions and agricultural development of the rubber growers within the jurisdiction of the RPS and without any profits. That's the goal of the society itself. And then just let me take the first 1 or 2 of them just to give a sense about what is it that is expected when you are talking about agriculture and socio-economic development. The first goal is to disseminate latest technical knowledge to the growers in terms of planting, trapping, processing, crop, and marketing. And the second one is technology transfer schemes of the board, state government, and all of that. And so on and so forth. A number of functions are kind of written over there. Okay, I think this is just to show the numbers and all. I think so right now. Now, given the functions that I have shown on the kind of functions that the rubber board is supposed to follow, what in terms of the rubber producer supported societies are supposed to follow, we can divide the functions into the following activities. We can think of them, these functions as the following: that is productivity increase for the farmer, product differentiation for the farmer, getting better price for the farmer, reducing the cost of production for the farmer, then reducing the cost of processing for the farmer, reducing risks for the farmer, then socially productive functions. These are the basic functions that you can take from the objective that was written down over there. These are the functions that one can map out. And what are the economic activities that these functions, these RPS are supposed to do? For productivity increase, for instance, you could do technology diffusion. This includes providing new CDs, new tapping techniques, rain guarding, so on and so forth. For product differentiation, you could do value-added products, greedy, and so on and so forth. For better pricing, you could do aggregation of rubber, group sales, providing price information, and so on and so forth. So on and so forth, you can think of what are the functions, what kind of economic activity the RPS can get into, and whom should they interact with is also actually, if you read it, the objectives carefully, you will see whom should they interact with also. Who are the interactive partners for the fund? Productivity increase, it is the rubber board. Product differentiation is the rubber board and RPS companies. What are RPS companies? RPS companies are higher level of a set of companies that have been set up with the shareholdings of both the rubber board and the RPS systems, the rubber producer societies, and the rubber board put share into them, and they establish what is called the RPS companies. These are actually Section 8 companies. They are registered under the Companies Act, but they are not profit-seeking companies. They cannot be profit-seeking, but they are under the Companies Act. Right? So RPS companies. Then you have rubber board corporates and state cooperatives. Then better price for all. You can think of the interactive partners of these companies, dealers, rubber board, and so on and so forth. So, but if you look at the functions that are given over there and the economic activities given over there, if you look at the interactive partners, who are the interactive partners? I think rubber board is the most important interactive partner over there. RPS, in effect, is supposed to function very closely with the rubber board. But all the activities to look at, if you look at productivity, increase product differentiation, better prices, lower cost, and so on and so forth, wherever you look at, rubber board is the principal player for the RPS. Now, those set of activities which I have mentioned in terms of function, if you look at what are the types of activities that they have done, we can see the following activities. For instance, if you look at productivity, we have done the survey was done for 99 rubber producer societies, and we have divided a set of activities that we have surveyed into the functions that we have planned in terms of productivity. For instance, providing skill training is one of the productivity intensive. Assisting in new transfer of new technology is another way of increasing the productivity. Information dissemination of new farming techniques is another productivity. Now, if you look at of the 99 rubber producer societies, 70 of them have taken up these three activities, that is productivity increasing tools, that is skill training, assisting in transfer technology, information dissemination, and so on and so forth. So, but if you leave for productivity increasing techniques, if you look at the rest of them, product differentiation, better price per output, lower cost of production, lower cost of processing, risk reduction, social reproduction, in any of the other categories, you find there is a sharp drop in the number of RPSs that have taken up any activity at all. It's only in the productivity-related activities the RPS seems to have taken an active interest, and activity seems to be taken. Or any other activities, including the other big one you can see is actually group marketing. That is, you collect the rubber from different rows and sell it. That's group marketing. About 24 of them have done this thing. Collect then group purchase of inputs, that is, you buy inputs for the farmers from the market and sell it to the farmers, or give it to the farmers at some kind of subsidized price. That's another important one. But generally, asset groups and granting subsidies from government bodies, about 47 of them. But generally, what you see is that apart from this particular important activity of productivity enhancement, the rest of the factors for the RPS activity seem to be much lower in terms of the importance that RPS seems to be giving at all. Now, I want to give an important, I want to relate this to what we have seen earlier. If you look at productivity and the kind of activity there, I want to go back to the that we have started off with. If you look at the disseminate latest technological knowledge to those in the overproducing practicing, and the second one, agriculture technology practice. Right? So these two seems to be, it is not just an ordering, it's not just a set of objectives that are written out there. These seems to be the priority of the rubber board itself in terms of what should the RPS should be doing, right? And that seems to be reflecting on what the RPSs are doing. The rest of the factors, they have some importance, but not to the extent what, not to the level where all the other factors, all the other kind of activities have been done. The second column over here shows the whether any RPS have taken any service payment for the kind of service that has been delivered. For providing skill training, no, hardly anyone. Most of them don't take any particular payments for the services that are rendered, except for group purchase of inputs. That's the only one that you would see actually. The service cost is kind of drawn from the rowers and such, and the rest of them are mostly their kind of. So, in effect, what I'm trying to say is that though there are a large number of functions that the RPS can do, the RPS is kind of limited to one particular set of activity, that is the productivity increase. That's the core, and the rest of the activities are there, but not so very important for us. Now, many of the activities that are done by the RPS comes through the infrastructure that they have, right? What is the kind of infrastructure that they have, and does it lead to, if you have the infrastructure, you can provide with various kinds of services. Now, as here it is the percentage of RPS with the infrastructure, and the second column proves that the percentage of RPS with that particular infrastructure in a working environment, right? Whether they are working or not. And I've given a list of all the things over there. As you can see, most of the weighing machine is a popular one which is available across all the RPSs, and that is fully about 50% of the RPSs have. And about 50% of them did not have this thing. And most other RPSs did not have the basic infrastructure that is required for the state to continue, right? And interestingly, even when you have the kind of infrastructure that we're talking about, it cannot be a working condition. For instance, you have an office building, 20% of our office buildings, only 16% are under working condition. Or for instance, DRC testing facilities, 25% had some kind of machinery to test the facility, but 12% were in the working conditions. Right? So it would mean that there is a clear lack of infrastructure availability that is required for the rubber producer societies to survive, the basic infrastructure that is required for the rubber producer societies to survive in the kind of. And it's not only that one-time investment in buying this thing, there is no maintenance also that is available. That is why they are actually falling into volunteer order. Now, getting to the details of, there are two important, apart from providing the testing and what we call that productivity enhancing testing, there are two other things which I have mentioned. That is, one is marketing, that's group marketing, the other is group buying. Group marketing is basically you buy the rubber and sell it in the market. The basic idea is to get some kind of bargaining power, some kind of bargaining power in the market so that you get buys. Now, what is written over here, which is procurement, is basically the number of RPSs which are procuring during this period, and sales is how many of them sell rubber, what is procured rubber goods. We have surveyed 99 of them, and about 46 during this period, 2016 to 18, about 46 of them was involved in some form of procurement, and 43% of them were involved in some form of sale. In other words, about half of the RPSs were not involved in group sales activities. About half of them were only involved in this, that is, buying rubber and procuring rubber from the farmers and selling it in the market. I think that the economic logic is very obvious. You are actually trying to get some bargaining power. You are actually competing with the monopolist. That's the introduction. There are monopolist competition that is going on over there. The prices are being kind of controlled in a manner by the large automobile buyers over there. So what we are trying to do is actually trying to get bargaining power by consolidating half of them are not able to do it. Half of them are able to do it. When they are able to do it, you can see that most of them are involved in only two particular activities. One is collecting, one is called latex. Latex is actually liquid form of rubber, right? You buy that particular latex.
or what we call as field coagulants. Field coagulants are basically what is left over in the fields. It is what you take from the it's somewhat of a remnant. It is somewhat of a you are actually taking rubber support field coagulants and latex is there, which is liquid latex over there. The better ones actually are the RSS3, RSS4. RSS3, in terms of quality, in our market price that is available, you can RSS1 is the highest, RSS2, RSS3, RSS4, the price will fall in. That's RSS3, RSS4. And then you have ungraded sheets also. And field coagulants and latex gets the lowest price in the market. Right? Now you can see that none of the RPSs are actually involved in procuring high quality latex. What they are procuring is latex or field coagulants. Most of them collecting 41 of them collecting latex alone, or field coagulants around 12%, about 12%. Right? So mostly involved in collecting low-end, unprocessed rubber, and as I have just now shown, most of them does not have the ability to do the processing that is required for the rubber to be converted to any higher form of rubber. So most of them end up sending the same rubber to the next person. And the next person, to a large extent, either it can be an RPS company, that is the rubber producers company, or it could be a dealer. So in terms of the total sales that we do across years, we can see that most of the sales have been with regard to low-end rubber that is available. So in other words, why is it that the rubber producer societies are not able to collect this high-end, good quality RSS or RSS3 or 4 into the market? Is that it's not available? It's not that it's not available, which I will discuss in a later presentation again. There is some sort of often behavior that is going on. That is, the growers themselves are actually differentiated between dealers and RPS. You have the private dealers who would actually buy the high quality, the RSS, the 3, 4 and all. But the low quality field coagulant is what goes into the nutrition. Or it could be the latex. That seems to be the story. Some kind of differentiation. That's it. Now, among the different, I have shown about 40 of them had actually by sales. About procurement, input procurement and selling those input back to the growers. Most of the activity was with regard to one particular aspect, that is estate inputs. Otherwise, most other aspects were not kind of available. So estate inputs were the largest kind of inputs that were bought and sold at stake. But I must again mention here, the number of RPSs who are doing input sales is also very low. It's very low. Why they do it is actually most of them buy it from the dealer directly instead of from the company. If you go to a big company or a private company or even from an RPS company, you can actually buy it cheaper. But they end up buying from the dealer in the local market. And once you are in the dealer and buying it from the local market, you are buying it at not much of profit should be made over there. So they end up, many of them don't end up doing this in procurement. In terms of group activities, many activities have to be done in order to make the various aspects that we were talking about. They can involve in the following aspects also: introducing a tappers ban, common interest groups, involving industry, then labor group, then building self-help groups, and so on and so forth. But as you can see, very few of them are actually doing this. 13%, 10%, 4%. Group activities are considered to be an important part of the RPS activity, but what actually gets done is once the RPS buys rubber from the sellers, where do they sell it? About 70% going back to rubber producer societies, companies, RPS companies which I was talking about, and the remaining mostly going into either domestic dealers or private manufacturers. Now, look at the financial profile of the RPS. Now, this shows the revenue sources and the share of revenue that is coming for the RPS from different X assets. Just to focus on these two aspects, most of the revenue is coming from rubber sales. That is the main source of revenue. What I told you, that is procuring and then selling. That's the main source of revenue for the RPS. And there is about 27%. The last column shows the share of the sale. 27% come from input sales, but mostly coming from the rubber sales. So sales is one of the major activities through which they are generating their expenditure. 30% is on operational expenditure, and 31% is on buying input tools, which is actually procuring input for sales. So about 31% is going into that particular area. So basically, you have apart from operational expenses, about 31% of the total expenditure going into buying these inputs that are required for purchases. Now, the picture that we are getting now is, as I told you, RPSs numbers are shrinking in terms of activity, they are shrinking, and in terms of there is a kind of very skewed type of activity that is done by the RPSs, and also we also say that in terms of looking at the revenue and you can say that that's also kind of focused on to one or two particular activities as such. In terms of revenue, it is sales in rubber. In terms of expenditure, is actually buying inputs. Now let's look at the institutional factors as to what has led the RPSs into working into this particular. Macroeconomic conditions, I am not going into this thing. Chair has already discussed all these things. There is a falling rubber prices, rising cost of cultivation, and NR as a land or property protection tool. People use this instead of natural rubber, people have started keeping it. It's not for tapping, but just to protect the land itself. They don't tap the rubber asset. They just leave line fallow over there. They keep the rubber. Now, in effect, and also another important thing that rubber has become a secondary source of income. From being a primary source of income, in many households it has become a secondary source of income. In effect, the concluding remark for my macroeconomic condition would be that there are not all natural rubber holders are actually growers. They are not active growers. And not all growers show natural rubber as a primary source of income. And not all growers have the incentive to join RPS as members. Many of them are actually outside the RPS system. There are a few of them. Many of them are, as I will show you later, many of them are not active members. Now, from the conditions, from the macroeconomic conditions, we can actually make some meaning to what these numbers look like, right? The first column over there shows the share of RPS members in total cultivators in the ward. If share it is in, it should convert to percentage. It is actually 0.64 means it is 64%. So on an average between 2014, 15, and 18, 19, you can see that it's about 74% of the total cultivators in that particular ward is an RPS member. If you are a rubber cultivator, about 74% of them are an RPS member. But, and also you can see that from 2014 onward, there's a gradual increase in the total number of RPS members in the particular wards. So from 0.64% to right? Now, as Chairman had said, this is mainly because of the RPIS scheme that was introduced, rubber producer incentive scheme that was introduced by the Kerala government in order to subsidize or kind of make up for the fall in rubber prices and providing a kind of incentive for this. That has actually, and this incentive scheme is introduced, is also kind of implemented through the rubber producer societies, and that is why it actually attracts the rubber producers, the farmers into the business. But if you look at the active members' share, who the RPS members are increasing, but if you look at the active members' shares, they are kind of stagnant. They don't change. About 47%, and they are well. So only about 47% of the total rubber producing RPS members are actually active members. And about 80% of the entire village where there is RPS, they are active members. Okay, I think the next table. The next one shows that the share of active members when the RPS was registered. This, just keep in mind for the time being that there is, you can see that in the beginning of the period, that is the RPS was registered early in the 85, 89, that period, there seems to be a larger share of active members even today, right? But there is a period between 96, 99, between 2000, where the share of RPS active members seems to be declining. If the RPS was registered in that particular period, the activity share, active members seems to be declined. Again, there is a rise. So kind of a U-shaped kind of a thing gets. Now, going into the second part, that is the policies, laws, and rules governing rubber and RPS. Now, the basic policy framework for the rubber sector comes from what is called as the Rubber Act of 1947, which provides for the development of the rubber industry under the control of the union government. So the rubber the industry should be governed by the rubber. And the rubber board and the activities under the rubber board and which comes under the Ministry of Commerce all has been coming under from the rules of the rubber. In 2019, a national rubber policy came in place, which is called basically focusing on how to again kind of retelling the goals that I have told about, expanding or what we call or improve the overall condition of rubber sector. But when you see improve the overall condition, you can see the words that are used over there. That is area expansion, replanting of senile rubber trees, productivity enhancement, rubber processing, participatory enhancing essential strategies, market interventions, price safety mechanisms in rubber sector, rubber consumption, and export of rubber products. Right? Now, one word that for me which is missing over there is actually rules. The rest of the words are there. That is, you want to expand the area, you want to rubber should be changed, productivity should be increased, sectoral strategy should be good. So essentially the focus of the rubber policy itself is to kind of expand production productivity, which is the goal that we have charted out. Is that there is need for greater expansion of production and productivity of rubber. But at the it does not seems to be the policy itself does not seem to be kind of pointed towards what happens to the growers. So the rubber seems to be important, but not necessarily the growers. Maybe that. Then there is a Rubber Bill Act bill that came up in 2022, which could not be implemented, which could not be kind of implemented or passed in the parliament because of a lot of agitation that went on during the period 2022. And again, it came back in 2023 again in the parliament as a draft bill, which is still being considered for. But if you read the draft bill, this particular bias that I was talking about, it becomes much more projected. Now, what are the basic? In very simple terms, this is what it would be. But if you want, we can get into the details. That is, the bill was essentially industry bias with greater powers bestowed on the ministry and weakening the powers of the board, that is the rubber board. The rubber board is, the bills would say that the rubber board is not anymore. It is actually the ministry that will directly control the entire thing. And in the draft bill, you would not see again the growers, the concerns of the growers does not seem to be in the. Now, if you look at the Ministry of Commerce's vision for RPS, you would again see this in the enhanced production and productivity of rubber assets. And for the rubber board, the primary purpose is to ensure continued and enhanced production of rubber. Now, rubber board, in one or two of its documents, you will see that RPS is an extension wing to reach to the villages. It is part of the extension wing of the rubber. Right. So, the rubber board considers the rubber producer societies as part of its extension wing. Right. It is not an independent autonomous body as we do, right, but it is actually an extension wing. Now, the RPS also, if you go, when we go and talk to the various presidents and the functionaries of the RPS, they also carry this view that we are an extension wing of the rubber board itself. Right? We are a voluntary organization, but we are an extension. Now, from the above, we can kind of derive the following inferences. Enhancing production, yield, and extension of area and rubber are policy priorities. This is guided by the increasing input share of in our natural rubber. An increasing share of natural rubber is being imported because of the rising prices and other considerations. The demand for NR as a vital industrial input pushes these policy prescriptions. However, product differentiation, grading, processing, price correction, cost reduction, risk reduction, social reproduction are not policy priorities. You can see this kind of thing in the policy has. Thus, the policy environment is aimed at increasing rubber production, but not necessarily protecting the rubber producers. The activities of the rubber RPS also reflect these policy priorities. However, there is a conflict of interest. The growers are not necessarily interested in productivity. That is something that we need to. Why should the grower be bothered about the productivity? The grower is actually bothered about the profit that can be earned from the and profit is not always associated with productivity. You can actually have basically revenue minus cost. If you can increase your revenue without increasing productivity, it is possible, right? If you can get the same product at a higher price, that increases your revenue without increasing the productivity, right? And you can actually reduce the cost by using various things. Right? Now, which would mean that profitability and productivity is not the same, and the farmers or the growers' interest is actually to increase profitability rather than productivity, because productivity is actually expensive. There is a lot of initial effort that is required to increase productivity. Now, this is the conflict that lies between the interest of the farmers or the growers and the board itself, or the board or the policy making. The policy making bodies have the essential interest of the increasing rubber productivity in the industry, essentially because of the factor that we have talked about, but the farmers' interest does not align with the interest factors of the Now, coming to the legal structure of the RPS. Now, the RPS is registered under the Charitable Societies Act. Now, Charitable Societies Act is usually, CDS is a charitable registered under the Charitable Societies Act. Okay. It is usually done in cases where there is no profit available, or there cannot be any profit made, or there cannot be any form of activity that involves some form of voluntariness, that is the expectation. That is, there is some form of voluntariness that is involved, and the activities done are not profit making. However, even though the RPSs are registered under the Charitable Societies Act, if you look at the RPS, the way they function, they do not function like RPS, Charitable Societies Act, like a society, a charitable society. Rather, they function more like a cooperative. Now, a cooperative is quite different from a charitable society, right? How is the cooperative different? The cooperative also does not have profits per se, but cooperative works for their own interest. They actually work for their own interest, kind of developing. They have, it is a cooperative is a collection of people working towards earning, bettering their own, what we call their own, working for their own betterment, right? So it is a collection of people, but when cooperative society is also a collection of people, but society does not work for their own betterment, but the cooperative is supposedly working for their own betterment. Right? Now, registered as charitable societies, one of the serious limitations they face is that the society cannot accumulate or allot any profits. Now, think of, you want RPS to function, but you want RPS to function in terms of on a voluntary basis. You do not want RPS to function as profit-making enterprises. You do not want to work like that, but it has to be a voluntary organization. Right? Now, without legal profits, there is no legitimate incentive for RPSs to take up active roles in converting them to be active enterprises. RPSs will not grow, are not growing as active enterprises simply because of the fact that there is nothing over there to be earned. There is no profit. There is no, you have to work as a voluntary person over there. There's nothing to earn over there. Now, without basic legal structure in place, can we think of RPS to be lucrative? Now, getting into the membership characteristics. So, some of the characteristic features of RPS are interesting. You can cover the size class over there, but just look at the first row and then the last row. That is the share of members above the age group of 50. 72% of all RPS members are above the age group of 50. Right? 72%. That's quite a large share of your RPS members are, or just like the rubber trees in the older part of your age, 18 years. Share and only 37% of them had education more than higher secondary education. The RPS members. Only 16% had some female members in the RPS. Only 2% some SC/ST member in the RPS. And the share of full-time growers in the RPSs were only 50%, roughly about 56%. Now you can see what is the nature of that particular RPS that we are talking. We are talking about a voluntary organization filled with people who are really old. I included, I'm across 50, so I'm also people who are belong to a higher age, with probably not so educated, with hardly any kind of inclusion of what we call as female members or persons belong to scheduled caste or people, right? And even full-time growers are not there. So about 50% are only growers. So what is it? This actually, the voluntariness that we are expecting comes from this segment of the population. Voluntary work to be done, then that can only be done people who are actually retired. Who have a lot of free time, nothing much to do. They are ready to spend the time over there, and it's a kind of a work that they are taking up as a voluntary service, right? So it's actually voluntary work, and probably members with low levels of education also. I mean, this would mean that the ability to run these kind of facilities, how capable are these voluntary set of people to run these things, to be something that needs to be thought about. What is the average, the active, okay, I think we can now look at for any enterprise, whether it is private firms or for cooperatives or for producer societies, it is actually the ecosystem that you are living in that matters. Whom are you interacting with, and how does that turn into your productive activities? Now, if you look at these are the activities for a typical rubber producer society, RPS, can interact with all these particular, all these partners for a variety of activities that are developed. Like for instance, the rubber board, the rubber producer society companies, the FPO, other FPO, farm producer organization. It could be the center or the state government, local self-government, SNGs, private companies, CSR wings of companies, NGOs, then labor unions or associations, trade associations, political organizations, community and religious organizations, others and so on. And it could get involved in a number of activities like marketing, getting price information, purchase of inputs, or processing of output, productivity, and innovation. These are all the activities that we had shown in the beginning. Most of the activities that we had shown in the beginning, purchase of input, processing of productivity, innovation, livelihood diversification, social welfare, and so on. These are a set of activities the RPS could get into. So there are a whole range of activities that the RPS can get into, and there are a whole range of partners that the RPS can get into in terms of whom should they interact with, right? But you can, as you can see, whom they are interacting is marked over here. For marketing, 15 RPSs get in touch with rubber board. For price information, 46 RPSs get in touch with rubber board, and so on and so on. But as you can see, it is only the rubber board that is a source of information or source of production, marketing, price information, purchase information, processing of output, productivity. It is only the rubber board that provides any particular interaction with the RPS. The RPS, in other words, is living in a vacuum. Living completely dependent upon the rubber board and the RPS. The connection is between the rubber board and the RPS, and some amount of interaction with the rubber RPS companies. The rest of the world where the RPS is located does not matter. Now, is it important? It's an extremely important thing. If you look at private companies can work like this. You can have no interaction, you can have an exporter, you can have a trader, you can go on like that. But if you're a cooperative, carrying the spirit, then it reflects where you are living. You are actually constantly interacting. The members of that cooperative are actually constantly interacting with the world outside you. And what you do is interacting, right? Now, if the cooperative is not interacting with the, for example, if the cooperative is successful in interacting with the CSR being of a company, then they would end up doing something like, for instance, I gave an example. You can see that one RPS was able to do that, get into CSR name of a company and purchase inputs. Right? Four of them were able to get into touch with four private companies that started doing purchase inputs. It's all, so if you look at it, it is all possible. There are companies, there are RPSs which have done that, but very few of them have done. Most of them have actually depended largely on. Okay, I think even within the RPS, so our rubber board is the biggest contact point for the RPS, but even within the rubber board, even within the samples that we have collected, 19% of the RPS had no contact with the rubber board owners. They were completely in background. No contact with, even with the rubber board, no contact with the rubber board also, they were in complete background. About 49% of rubber RPSs did not have any contact with the RPS companies also. Companies also were not part of them. So no, so they seem to be completely kind of devoid of either the rubber board or the RPS. But generally, the contact is between rubber board and the RPS. Rubber board being the strongest contact, then the RPS, and then it's a complete background with no contact with the rest. Skip this. If you look at in terms of mark, this just shows each of the activity, what kind of networks they got involved with, and whether this network was significant in establishing one of these particular outcome of the RPSs, that is marketing maybe, or price information, purchase, input purchase, processing, innovation, skill training, livelihoods, and so on and so forth. And across all of the chain, you can see this, except for processing, which is quite surprising, which is, okay, except for processing, rubber board is consistently the important body for any RPS to do any activity. Yes. Right. RPS has some amount of role in rubber marketing, processing, some in innovation, skill training, and so on and so forth. Interestingly, trade associations provided price information and helped in innovation and were interested in labor welfare, but had a negative effect on convergence with self. Or if you look at the unions, for example, unions were actually involved in providing price information for the RPS, right? But they were not supporting of innovations. But you can see this thing, they were actually part of the labor welfare. They were able to provide welfare information with regard to welfare. So the point I'm trying to make is that there is a large set of networks, interactions that are possible, and each of them can be analyzed. And as if you go into each of them, right now, what we can see is that rubber board is the biggest player over there. RPS company plays some role, but the rest of the network seems to be largely absent. But there are possibilities. If you look at, for instance, livelihood diversification, if you look at rubber board is there, RPS company is there. But there are other FPOs, state government, central government, local government, all of them are actually involved in livelihood diversification activities, providing information and doing livelihood diversification through the RPS. Right? Similarly, labor welfare, rubber board is involved, the local government is involved, unions are, trade associations, NGOs are involved, so on and so on. So you would find that there is a possibility of networks, there is a possibility of interaction, but not much happens. Now, if you look at the governing system of RPS, as I told you, this is how it would look like. You have the rubber producer societies, and you have grower members who get elected to become, so not getting elected, you can become a member by following the exit or entry-exit rules of the RPS itself. Sometimes it could be acreage, some amount of acreage that they say, or some amount of rubber that you have to set the RPS. So you become a member, and then you can become, once you become a member of the RPS, you can also become, the RPS can be represented in the National Federation of RPS Owners. That is there. On the other hand, the RPS has membership in the ownership in the RPS companies, right? And the rubber board has, I've wrongly written over there that it is executive member. It is not an executive member. It is actually share of the rubber board, shares of the RPS company that is held by the rubber board. And the rubber board has its executive member as part of the rubber research society. This is how the structure of the overall within the RPS, how does the government structure arrangements? You have a three-tier system. Or you have the president, you have the executive committee, you have the society members. Right? The more you have, what is the mode of selection, then your functions, and then the decision making. You have the president who is elected by the RPS members. Then we have the executive committee, which is elected by the RPS members. There are 7 executive committee members, including the president, and 1 rubber board representative would be there, who's an ex officio member over there. And then you have the society members. The society members directly elect the executive committee as well as the president. There is also a vice president, similar powers. So I'm not mentioning that. And the functions, if you look at, you have the society member is the society members. Functions are to review past performance and set the broad objectives. Then executive committee is scrutiny and approval of the activities of the RPS on a regular basis. And the president is the one who actually does the day-to-day functioning representing the RPS. Now, in terms of decision-making power, the president is the chairman of the executive committee, the governing body, and he has the casting vote during equal votes. The executive committee consists of the executive committee meeting, and the majority vote prevails over there. And the level body meeting for the executive society members, and there also the majority vote prevails. Now, the society members meet usually once in a year or twice a year, and the executive committee is supposed to meet every quarter, maybe more than that. So 3 months to 4 months they meet, and the president is there almost. Now, in terms of salaries, as I told you, it's a voluntary work. The president and executive committee and the society members, all of them are doing voluntary work. So there is nothing called a salary over there. But there are honorariums paid for, maybe a sitting fee for this thing, or some honorarium paid for some small thing, this kind of hours. This is how the governance structure, and this is how it's supposed to function. Now, what we do is we have collected enough information. Lack of time, I'm just going to say how we have kind of analyzed the governance of the event. We have taken 5 different indicators. One is to look at accountability, then transparency, democratic values, participation in decision making, participation in the RPS, and inclusiveness in members. Right? And then we build an indicator. How we have built it or not, we consider data, but take it for me that it is something we have an indication. The indicators that we have taken to represent that are regularity in keeping annual reports and auditing and accounting. Auditors' transparency, we look at by auditor's statement, monitoring share for work in progress and variance shares in the RPS are part of this dimension. Then democratic values measured through variables that have to be regularity in general body meetings, regularity in executive committee meetings and elections. Then participate in decision-making mechanism, the general body and the executive committee are taken to represent this. Participation in RPS and the share of RPS members the talking growers is used to measure this. And inclusiveness in membership, the share of female growers and the CSD growers is taken to identify the extent of inclusivity in RPS. Once we do the same, we build an index for governance index, what we call as a governance index. It is basically an equally weighted taking different dimensions for each of different indicators for each of the dimensions and giving equal weights and then kind of mapping it, and this is what it looks like. As you can see, we have marked there 3, the top, the median, and the lowest one, as you can see. If you were achieving 1, it would mean that you are in that particular indicator, you are the best in that, and you have achieved the best possible in that particular. Right? And as you can see, the largest weakness across in terms of the topmost, the best RPS in this particular indicator, the best RPS lacks in inclusiveness, so little bit in transparency. But the general governance index is falling basically because of inclusiveness and transparency, but otherwise most of them. The median one, it shows again transparency, but at a much larger distance, a lack of transparency in governance, inclusiveness, and you have lack of decision-making participation. Democratic values seem to be quite strong over there also. And that seems to be the reason why governance is so. But in both these cases, the RPS participation is quite strong. And the bottommost one, if you look at, it is actually weak in all these dimensions. If you look at transparency, democratic values, decision making, except for RPS participation, it's kind of weak in all these dimensions. So we can see that in general, governance is an issue, but there are some RPSs which are governed quite well, which has got a very fairly high governance index. Even then you have this problem of inclusion and transparency issues are there. But in general, for the median RPS, you have lack of transparency, then inclusiveness as an issue over there, and decision-making powers are also quite weak over there. In our data, we actually collect information from what is the how many years a president has been sitting and ruling for the same RPS. Whether he has been part of any other association or any other political or other organization and so on. So this kind of reflects what is that particular aspect. Yeah, if you look at all those indicators again, we take the five different indicators in terms of the performance of the RPS, in terms of sales, input, processing, innovation, diversification, and the capability. And then we take up all these factors together, and then we run the following model, where we are looking at the governance index which I have just shown now, the network which I had shown earlier, the degree of networks as another indicator. And then we have a large number of indicators which represent different aspects about the RPS performance. The total growers in the RPS region, part-time growers share, they show the kind of agriculture, the nature of production of rubber in that particular region. The nature of RPS membership is shown from RPS members and total growers, active members shares. The quality or the kind of membership that is represented by the members above age group 50, education about 12 members share, female share, SC/ST members shares and all. Then we have the governance index which I have shown you. Then the total network is all the counted together which I have shown you. There are different possibilities of combining being a part of the network, and those networks are over there. Then finally, we have two control variables, that is the total number of RPS members, which is represent the size of the RPS itself, how big it is. And the age of the RPS is looked at by the registration, which year they have registered. That's all. Okay? And then all are logistic impression basically, and you can look at the results over there. Now, total growers in the RPS region, if we look at sales, for example, almost all the factors that we have mentioned over there are important. But for example, it is important to note that the performance of the RPS, one of the important factors, if you look at total growers, whether it is sales, processing, these two particular activities, it is actually the number of growers in that region. It's not even the membership in RPS that matters. It is actually the number of growers in that particular region that actually matter. Right? It makes sense. Actually, the RPSs, they do not, it is not, the RPS activities are not exclusive to the members of the RPS. Any grower can come and sit in the RPS. So it would mean that if you have an RPS where there are a large number of sellers over there, you are doing well in that particular direction. And processing also, that is the kind of story that seems to be there. Part-time, if you have part-time growers, that generally affects the entire performance of the RPS over there in terms of sales, input, processing, innovation, diversity, whatever the activity that you want to take up. If there are a large number of part-time growers in that particular region, the RPS's performance is going to, at least in terms of innovation, is going to have negative effect, and that part-time growers, because of the presence of part-time growers, the particular kind of effect on the RPS. Now, RPS members, the share of RPS members to total growers, if you look at it as a significant effect on sales, total sales, but it is important to see that it does not have any impact on input, processing, innovation, diversification, labor welfare, right? How many members are there of the total members, of the total growers, how many of them are RPS members? That is important only for one particular that is sales, and the rest of the bit does not matter. And the next one is even interesting, that if the share of active members within the RPS, if that is higher, then the probability of you involved, the RPS involved in sales is actually lower than if you have active members lesser over. I'm not able to explain it clearly as to why this particular item is there. But one particular possibility that we can think about is that if the RPS is particularly active, it would also mean that I have told you earlier that there is kind of sales, that is diversification that is going on. Some kind of sales that is the good quality sales seems to be going outside the RPS, and it is actually the poorer quality of goods that seems to be entering into the system. So maybe some kind of diversification of it, but clearly I am not able to say what we do. Members above the age of 50, for the case of sales, it is actually good. It is not a bad thing, though the age, as I told you in the beginning, it seems to be as a comparator. It is actually helping in improving the sales, but in none of the other factors. If you look at in terms of inputs, it has a negative effect, but not significant. Innovation, it has a negative effect. Diversification has a negative effect. Labor welfare has a negative effect. None of them are significant. So I'm not making any claims over there, but there seems to be something over there about things. Education, two factors. In processing, it is important. In sales, it is important. Both having positive effects. So the role of education, I think it is quite clear. Female share is having a negative effect over there. The share of ACST also seems to be showing a negative effect. The governance index, as I had shown, it has a positive effect. On labor welfare, there seems to be a negative. Now, I think that is an important thing to note over here. That if the RPS is well governed, then it may not be having positive effects on the labor welfare. I think the problem here is that when we are saying that when it is well governed, it means that it is governed according to the structure that has been given. So it is actually governing well, but on the basis of which what it has been asked to govern. Whether it is governing for itself, that is a problem. If it is governing for itself, maybe the outcome may be different. But right now, it is when you are saying it is the well-governed RPS, it is following all the bylaws that have been prescribed, and therefore it is a well-governed. So it could be that kind of thing. The network effect seems to be quite strong. The kind of network I talked about earlier, the kind of network that you have, the diversity of networks that you have seems to be very, very strong effect across. If you look at for sales, if you look at for processing, for innovation, for diversification, labor welfare, the more networks you have, the greater the RPS has performing better in any of these dimensions. Right? Age of the RPS seems to be mattering in terms of innovation and the labor welfare. That's it. I think so. So in kind of what are the factors for RPS performance? Broadly, you can see that some things that are very clearly pointing towards better performance is the network, the kind of networks that you build for the RPS, and the whether the RPS is actually located in a place where there are actually a lot of growers and lot of full-time growers themselves, and the education seems to have a very strong and strong effect aspects. So these are the kind of takeaways and things. Now, in terms of recommendations, I would not really brought the conclusion, but some recommendations are required. But in general, there is need for a radical shift in the policy outlook at the highest level to balance rubber production with rubber producers or rubber growers, etc. Recognizing that the center of the rubber ecosystem is not rubber, but rubber producers. Rubber growers are the center, not the rubber in itself. There is group sale, group purchasing, group processing, risk mitigation, social reproduction must be given greater emphasis in the scheme of things for the home themselves. There are several specific recommendations that are possible. Change the legal status of RPS from charitable societies to a firm under the company standard. We are Section 8 company. It is like the RPS companies. Even the RPS are work societies kind of companies. So they will be smaller, but they can be registered as companies. This allows for profit redistribution among members, creating an incentive structure to work as an economic entity. Encourage diversification of activities, especially processing and value-added activities. These activities must be done in response to market demand. Reduce dependence on the rubber board for subsidies, and instead rubber board to take up productive roles interacting with the RPS citizens. I'm not explaining this thing. The rubber board, when they started with the RPS for them, but the Amul model did not take off in case of Kerala. But there are many things to learn from the sugarcane models, the Amul models in Maharashtra. Professional management has to be reduced, democratic governance has to be strengthened over there. Increase the size of the RPSs. Smaller RPSs should be brought down, make bigger RPSs, increase the catchment area, and make them into profitable enterprises. So, running for profit or market profit. Start value-added activities, higher levels of aggregation. Most important is probably to enter tire production itself in the cooperative sector or in the non-profit company sector as a competition to costing. That is strong. Thank you.